Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most incredible survival stories ever documented, pulled straight from the journal of 18th century explorer Mungo Park. We're going back to 1795 to a mission that started with discovery but quickly spiraled into a total nightmare of captivity, starvation, and a desperate one-man struggle to stay alive in a world almost no European had ever seen. And let's just start with Park's own words, because this sentence right here, it tells you everything you need to know. It perfectly sets the stage for the horror he was about to face. This wasn't just about the physical dangers of exploration. It was about surviving in a place where his very being, a Christian stranger, made him less than human in the eyes of his captors. All right, so let's set the scene. It's 1795. Mungo Park, a young and very ambitious Scottish surgeon, takes on a job from the famous African Association in Britain. The mission sounds simple on paper. Find the source of the Niger River and map its course. But you have to understand, this was one of the biggest geographical mysteries of the time. For Europeans, Africa was this giant blank spot on the map, a place filled with rumors of unbelievable riches and unimaginable dangers. And for the first few months, things actually went pretty well. He leaves England, and by early 1796, he's pushed deep into the interior, further than most had ever gone. He's trading, taking notes, doing his job. But then, in March 1796, in a kingdom called Ludamar, his luck just completely runs out. He's ambushed by Moorish warriors led by a chieftain named Ali. And just like that, his mission as an explorer is over. His new life as a captive has begun. So Park is dragged to Ali's camp. Now, when Park uses the term Moor, he's talking about the nomadic Berber and Arab peoples of the Saharan region. And for them, he wasn't a prisoner you'd ransom. He was something else entirely. He was a curiosity to be stared at, a spectacle for entertainment, and honestly, an object of pure contempt. The next 4 months would be a relentless test of his will to live. His day-to-day life became this constant, humiliating performance. They stuck him in this flimsy little hut made of corn stalks, and from the moment the sun came up until it went down, he was surrounded. There was absolutely no privacy, no moment of peace, just this endless crowd of hostile faces, watching him, judging him, treating him like some strange new animal in the camp zoo. And what's really crucial to get from this quote is that the cruelty wasn't random. It was a strategy. Park figured out that they were trying to get a rise out of him. They wanted him to lash out, to get angry, because that would give them the perfect excuse to beat him or steal the few possessions he had left. His only defense was to just take it, to show no reaction at all. This slide, I think, just lays out the core of the problem perfectly. Look at the two columns. It's this massive, uncrossable gap in how they saw the world and how they saw him. In his mind, he's a man of science, an explorer. To them, he's an infidel spy. He sees himself as a human being. They see him as a thing to be mocked. He's a man. To them, he's just the king's property. This disagreement over his basic humanity is what allowed all the cruelty to happen. The humiliation was just constant, and it got deeply, deeply personal. Ali's wives would come to his hut just to poke at his skin and examine his hair, like he was an animal. And this quote, it describes one of the most degrading moments of all, driven by what he called their ungovernable curiosity. He actually had to use his wits to try and turn this terrifying inspection into some kind of joke, just to get out of it. So on top of all the psychological torture, there was the slow, grinding misery of starvation. This slide says it all. One bowl. That's it. He and his 2 attendants got a single small bowl of couscous to share between them each day, usually served around midnight. And that had to last them for the next 24 hours, all while suffering through the insane desert heat during Ramadan, no less, which only made his captors' tempers even worse. Water was even more valuable than food, and it became just another weapon to use against him. This moment Park describes it's just devastating. He's burning with thirst. Someone offers him a drink and then snatches it away. Why? Because the man remembered he was a Christian and was afraid his lips would pollute the bucket. So, with no other choice, Park got on his hands and knees and literally fought the cattle to drink the last drops of muddy water from their trough. It's the ultimate act of dehumanization. So, after 4 months of this living hell, a window of opportunity opens. The camp is on the move, everything's chaotic, and Park sees his chance. He manages to grab his horse and just bolts, escaping into the massive, empty desert. But as he was about to find out, his ordeal was very, very far from being over.
This slide basically lays out how his so-called freedom just collapses in a matter of hours. First, Ali sends men after him. He manages to get away from them, but in doing so, he rides straight into an ambush by a different group of Moors. These guys weren't his captors, just bandits. They pull him off his horse, take the animal, and then they start taking everything else, piece by piece, including his compass, the one thing he needed to have any hope of finding his way.
In the end, they took his coat, his waistcoat, even his hat. They actually talked about killing him right there, but decided he wasn't even worth the effort. And they just rode off, leaving him standing in the middle of this immense African wilderness with literally nothing but a shirt and a pair of pants. No food, no water, no way to find his direction. Utterly and completely alone. So this is it. This is the absolute bottom, the lowest of the low. All the captivity, the starvation, the beatings, it all led to this single moment. He had escaped one version of hell, only to be dropped into a much bigger, much more final one. Alone, half-naked, and totally lost, he was staring certain death right in the face under that brutal sun, and he knew it. His journal entry from this moment is just chilling. He was completely overcome with despair. He looked around and saw nothing. No people, no water, just an endless, empty horizon. He was convinced his story ended right there. He was ready to give up, to just lie down in the sand and wait to die. But then, just as he's about to surrender, something catches his eye. A tiny, tiny little piece of moss growing there in the dirt, and he describes to in his journal as having this extraordinary beauty. In that moment, the scientist, the naturalist inside him just took over. He starts marveling at its delicate, perfect structure. And as you can see from this quote, that simple observation sparks this profound, life-altering thought. This tiny plant, somehow thriving in one of the most hostile places on Earth, it completely changed his perspective. It wasn't just a plant. To him, it felt like a message. It was evidence of a caring creator in a place that felt totally godless. And it gave him back the one thing he had completely lost: hope. And this, right here, this was the single thought that saved Mungo Park's life. The logic was so simple, but so powerful. If some divine power, some form of providence, could take such incredible care to create this tiny, beautiful thing in the middle of nowhere, then surely that same power hadn't completely abandoned him, a creature formed after his own image. That thought was enough. It meant he wasn't forsaken. So filled with this new strength, he gets up and he starts walking. No compass, but he knows to head west, following the sun, just hoping it will eventually lead somewhere. The journey was still an absolute nightmare. He was starving, weak. He talks in his journal about drinking muddy water from puddles right alongside frogs, just to stay hydrated. But then, time and again, just when he thought it was over, he would find unexpected kindness. He'd stumble into a village and an old woman would give him a handful of nuts. He even figured out that his ability to write was seen as a kind of magic, and he started trading little written charms for food and a safe place to sleep. He was surviving one kindness at a time.
Mungo Park did eventually make it back to civilization. Now, technically, his mission was a failure. He didn't chart the Niger. But his story of survival, that became legendary. And it leaves us with this powerful question you see on the screen. When we're facing our own wilderness, when we feel stripped of everything and totally alone, what's our tiny piece of moss? What's that one small, unexpected, beautiful thing we can find that reminds us that we're not forsaken and gives us the strength to just get up and keep walking?